While Sam Leavitt is visiting LSU, the quarterback transfer market just got a huge plot twist. I will explain. It's Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get great podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well, so please subscribe. And as always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. Thank you for helping make the Locked on Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. Today's episode is brought to you by Rougiette. If you've been thinking about taking the next step, now is the time. Head to Rougiette.com/lockedoncollege to get 15% off your order for a limited time. Rougiette ready. Feel present, feel confident, feel ready. While Sam Leavitt is on his visit at LSU, which I'm going to give you an update on that visit here in just a minute, okay? As we record this on Tuesday night, Leavitt got to campus mid-afternoon on Monday. We told you on the previous episode how it kind of went that first day, some expectations, give you an update on how Tuesday went. By the way, Leavitt's supposed to be back on campus on Wednesday. He's not leaving quite yet. But while I was sitting here on Tuesday night getting ready to record this episode of Locked on LSU, refreshing Twitter, and the news came from Pete Thamel that Washington quarterback DeMond Williams is entering the portal. Now, you may say, Matt, what's the big deal? I mean, Sam Leavitt's the #1 quarterback in the portal. He's on LSU's campus. They're close to closing him. Why should we care about DeMond Williams? Let me remind you, if you're an everydayer, that name should sound familiar, DeMond Williams. I get it. Sometimes we live in our own little isolated bubble, this ecosystem in the Southeast. We don't think about players in other parts of the country. But if you're an everydayer, I did a show right here on New Year's Day on the eve of the portal opening, where I went through LSU's quarterback targets. And we talked about Chambliss, and we talked about Sorsby, and we talked about Leavitt, and we talked about Lagway, and I told you there were 2 other prospects that were not yet in the portal that you needed to keep an eye on. And one of them was DeMond Williams. Don't believe me? Here you go. The first name I'm going to give you is a name that's not, as of now, declared his intention to be in the portal, but there's a lot of smoke around this name. And it's DeMond Williams Jr. from Washington. Told you, on New Year's Day, I mentioned to you DeMond Williams Jr. And what happened was, a couple of days later, DeMond Williams declared he was staying at Washington. Okay, he's off the board. And LSU continued on its path. They hosted Sorsby, now they're hosting Leavitt. Well, Tuesday night, just 4 days after announcing he was staying at the University of Washington, DeMond Williams puts his name in the transfer portal. Now, I am not going to be reckless with speculation. I do not know what DeMond Williams is planning to do. Maybe it's a situation where he just saw Sorsby get $5 million and thought, let me go in the portal. He's up there in the Pacific Northwest. Maybe Oregon, who's about to lose Dante Moore, got on the horn and said, hey, DeMond, you sure you don't want to go in the portal? Here's $6 million. I don't know. I have no idea. Here's what I do know. I know today the same thing I knew on New Year's Day when I told you about DeMond Williams, which is Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weis love DeMond Williams Jr. DeMond Williams, as a high school prospect in the class of 2024 coming out of Chandler, Arizona, was a 4-star. He was the number 205 prospect in the country. He was the 19th best quarterback. And you can hem and haw and say, what's the big deal? But I'll remind you that he enrolled at Arizona, picking Arizona over his number 2 choice, Ole Miss, where he was recruited by Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weis. Well, after that season, after that signing period, Jedd Fisch leaves Arizona for Washington. So what does DeMond Williams do? He goes in the transfer portal. And who recruits him again? Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weis. So he never took a snap at Arizona. He signed with Arizona, Jedd Fisch left, and then ultimately he followed Jedd Fisch to Washington. Well, 2 seasons here at the University of Washington as a freshman in 2024. Limited playing time. Threw for 900 yards, 8 touchdowns, and a pick. In his sophomore season, Damon Williams threw for 3,065 yards, 25 touchdowns, 8 picks, had a quarterback rating of 161. He ran for 611 yards and 6 touchdowns, meaning he accounted for, in his second season at Washington, 32 touchdowns. 32 touchdowns as a sophomore. And the head coach and offensive coordinator at LSU have recruited him now twice. So we can all look and say, but Matt, they got Sam Leavitt on campus. And they do. And LSU may close Sam Leavitt on Wednesday. So I am not telling you, I want to be so clear. I'm not telling you anything I know because I don't know. What I know is what I just told you, is that Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weis love Damon Williams. They've recruited him twice. And I told you before the portal opened, watch that name, because if he goes in, you better believe Kiffin and Weis would have him on the list. Of course they would. They've had him on the list twice. Why wouldn't they have him on again? Well, we know what's happened. Trinidad Chambliss is re-upped with Ole Miss. Brendan Sorsby is at Texas Tech. You've got the number 1 quarterback in the portal on your campus right now on a multi-day visit. Let me give you the update there in just a second. But he's also a guy that's coming off a Liz Frank injury. You're talking about broken bone, ligament damage in the foot. Like, that's not easy to overcome. And they know that, and we've talked about it here already, it's a known thing that Sam Leavitt is likely going to miss spring practice while he comes back from the Liz Frank injury. So all I'm saying is, I'm not telling you this is something. What I'm telling you is, it ain't nothing. And we better pay attention to it, because that kid Damon Williams will have interest from Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weis, because it's already happened twice. You better believe it would happen a third time. So if they close on Sam Leavitt, great. If not, this has got to be the guy. It just has to be. Now, Williams entered with a do not contact tag, meaning he very likely has something in the works already. What is that something? I don't know. But we're going to find out in relatively short order. All I'm saying is, pay attention. I'm not saying it's something. I'm just telling you, it ain't nothing. It's worth paying attention to. So, in the meantime, Sam Leavitt is on campus. I'll tell you how that visit has gone. I'll give you the update from Tuesday and into Wednesday. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The college football playoff is here, and FanDuel is giving all customers even more ways to get in on the action every single game day of the playoffs. Because right now, every college football playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost waiting for them in the app. And here's what I love about it. You get to use the profit boost on the bets you already feel good about. You want to ride with the favorite when you think that team controls the matchup? You want to take a shot on the underdog if you feel an upset's coming? You want to build a parlay around the players and moments you think decide the game? Then you apply the profit boost and go after even bigger winnings. And when you win, FanDuel pays out instantly, which is perfect for playoff football. FanDuel is the best place to get into the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boosts every game day. That's FanDuel. Okay, I'm going to update you on Sam Leavitt's visit, but I want to thank you, as always, for making Locked on LSU your first listen of the day. Thank you for making Locked on the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't done it already, please go check out our new Everydayer Club. It gives you access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked on LSU, compatible with Apple, Spotify, all the podcast apps, and an invite to a members-only Locked on Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. So please go tap the link in the show notes to learn more. Okay, so Sam Leavitt on his visit to Baton Rouge. If you were watching or checking out the internet on Tuesday night, you probably saw Sam Leavitt at the LSU men's basketball game, sitting right next to Lane Kiffin. Also, Whit Weeks was there as well, and Jackson Harris, the LSU wide receiver commit from Hawaii, who apparently is still on LSU's campus after his visit and after sticking around and committing and signing with LSU. So Jackson Harris was there with Lane Kiffin, Sam Leavitt, and Whit Weeks there. So it is it was an interesting day. So if you were here on our previous episode, we told you Leavitt arrived in Baton Rouge about 2 o'clock Monday, was meeting the coaches and the staff on campus at football ops, went to dinner at Supper Club. Told you it was a private dinner at Supper Club. It was Charlie Weis, Joe Cox, Dane Stevens, quarterback's coach, Whit Weeks, Leavitt, and his parents. The 7 of them went to dinner at Supper Club. Tuesday, the visit continued at LSU. I'll tell you, what's interesting to me as I'm learning this is how the LSU staff is managing visits. Because I think it was interesting to someone, I said Lane Kiffin wasn't at the dinner. And what's pretty interesting about how they're breaking down these visits is when a prospect gets to campus, it's really an evaluation and less of a recruiting sales pitch. In high school, if you've offered a high school player and you get them on campus for a visit, that is about trying to close them, trying to sell them and close them on committing to your program. This is different because these coaches go through their evaluation watching the game film. This is my understanding, talking to a lot of people around the program, with how this new staff does it. So they can watch game footage and they have their sort of system of how they evaluate and assign an evaluation grade to a player, meaning Billy Glasscock, Lane Kiffin. So they look at size, speed, height, weight, all the measurables, and then the game film, and they give an evaluation. But they want the player to come on campus as well. And they'll do film breakdowns with him, much like an NFL visit, like a top 30 visit before the draft. You're not trying to sell the prospect necessarily on your spot. You're still trying to evaluate to see how you grade them. It may sound obvious with Leavitt, but there's still a lot. And they also want to know things. And as I understand it, part of this evaluation metric from Glasscock and Kiffin is sort of the intangibles. How are you as a teammate? How are you as a character person? Those are all things that factor into the grade or rating that they give each prospect. Well, you can't know that until you sit down and talk to them. So that's what happens as they sort of go with their position group. And only when it's time to talk numbers and contract, then does the prospect go talk to Billy Glasscock, the GM who handles the money. I mean, that's not that dissimilar from the NFL, where if you're hosting a free agent, the whole concept of hosting the free agent is, all right, well, you get them there, you talk ball with the coaches, and then you talk contract with the GM in the front office. So that's kind of how this goes throughout here. I was told that Leavitt was super impressed by LSU's VR room. Remember, this VR room was the thing that Jaden Daniels kind of made famous, right? Jaden had a key. You probably saw the stories on it. Jaden had a key to football ops. He would go there early in the morning before anybody else was there, and he would watch game film on the VR goggles at 1.75 speed. So he was basically getting mental reps at super speed. So when he was watching the games, when he was playing a game real time, it felt like slow motion. Jaden gave a ton of credit to that technology before his Heisman season and during his Heisman season. So, and it's really a cool room. If you ever walked into football ops and you go in the front door, there's a door to the right near the trophies that goes toward the locker room and toward the practice field. Well, as you're making the turn toward the team room, there's a room on the left, and it's a long room, right? It's probably 10 or 15 yards long, but it's only about 5 yards deep. So think of it like the offensive line could line up in there, but it's not like you run routes or anything in there. But what it allows is for a quarterback, say, to stand there with the VR goggles and take a 3-5 step drop and stuff like that, and actually move around a little bit in there and take their mental reps. But anyway, so apparently Leavitt was blown away, very impressed by the VR room. That's something I was told. And I had a conversation with a staffer, and it was very self-aware because the first thing this person told me was, this is going to sound like sour grapes. This is a staff member telling me this. Said, this is going to sound like sour grapes, but basically said, we like Leavitt more than we like Sorsby. It's not that you didn't like Sorsby, it's splitting hairs. I mean, you're talking about It's almost like judging supermodels. Well, do you like the blonde or the brunette? It's preference. Well, and Sorsby's one of the top guys, and Leavitt's one of the top guys as well. Both are going to command big interest and big dollar amounts and all that sort of stuff. But a couple of things that I was told that their impressions of Leavitt so far have been that they feel like he can handle the pressure of being in the SEC, the pressure of being at LSU, the pressure of this fan base, the pressure of the expectation. And the other thing, too, is the way it was described is they feel Leavitt's like an alpha that can handle other alpha athletes at a place like LSU. The first thing that came to my mind was the story that's been told now quite a bit years later, but it was the fight with Joe Burrow and Patrick Queen. When Queen hit Burrow, if you remember in 2018, Burrow at one time was the only healthy scholarship quarterback on the roster, and they were scrimmaging, and they weren't supposed to hit Burrow. Queen hit Burrow in a scrimmage. Burrow got up and threw the ball, and they fought on the field. But it's one of those types of things where you have to be an alpha and not take anything and be able to point at other alphas and tell them to fall in line and have them believe you and fall in line behind you. And that's kind of what it was described about Leavitt. So my point is, listen, if LSU lands Sam Leavitt, you're over the moon. Now, there is a big question about the Lisfranc injury and how quickly he can come back. The other thing that I was told about Leavitt is viewing this as a 2-year commitment, not as 1 year. He's not looking at 1 year pros. Now, if he comes to LSU, has an awesome year, and ends up a top 10 to 15 pick in the right situation, the right teams drafting there at the top, then he would go after 1 year. But he's viewing it like he's going to be here for 2 years, wherever he transfers to. So that's another very intriguing part. With the Burrow comp, remember, Burrow in 2018, who showed up in June, really struggled in that first season. He was good, but he wasn't great. It wasn't Joe Burrow. Only when he went into that second season did you hit that parabolic run-up with Joe Burrow, and he had the greatest season ever. Same thing with Jaden Daniels. Very good in 2022, but he became the Heisman winner in 2023. So I think that's maybe another appealing part of Leavitt. All that to say, LSU potentially here has two really good options. Listen, if you land Sam Leavitt, awesome. You land the number one quarterback in the transfer portal. And if you land the number one quarterback in the transfer portal, then the narrative starts to change about Lane Kiffin at LSU, because this portal class now, the portal king and all, you've landed the top quarterback in the class. If for whatever reason it doesn't work out with Leavitt and Damon Williams ends up being the guy, you have to be super excited, because you're talking about a guy with 2 years of eligibility left that this coach and offensive coordinator love, that they have already recruited twice. And and one thing we can agree, they know what they're looking for in a skill set and evaluation of a player. And clearly, they feel like Damon Williams has it for their offense. And he just showed it, accounting for 32 touchdowns as a sophomore at the University of Washington in the Big Ten. So I don't know that LSU could lose, provided they get one of these guys. And similar to Leavitt Sorsby, if it's Leavitt Williams, whichever way it goes, you land one of these guys, all of a sudden your optimism for LSU in 2026 is through the roof about what the potential is with either Damon Williams or Sam Leavitt. I feel like we're going to get an answer sooner than later. Leavitt's visit continues into Wednesday at LSU, and I would suspect we've got to have an answer. I can't imagine Leavitt leaves Baton Rouge without giving an answer. What other options might be out there for Sam Leavitt? Listen, after Minchie flipped from Nebraska to Kentucky, maybe Nebraska is an option. Miami could still be an option as well, obviously, as Carson Beck is going to be out of eligibility and they need a quarterback. But now Washington, if Damon Williams is certainly leaving Washington, they'll need a quarterback. But this is one that I think it's coming to a head, and we're getting an answer sooner rather than later about who the LSU starting quarterback for 2026 is going to be. And I believe it's going to be Sam Leavitt or Damon Williams at this point. It's hard to imagine it going another way than one of those here. As it unfolds, we'll certainly talk about it. Okay. A quick break. We'll wrap up here with a quick portal roundup, as the Tigers did add their first 2 defensive prospects and 2 more offensive prospects. We'll talk about that as we wrap up Locked on LSU, your team every day. Let's talk about something that most men don't bring up, but absolutely should. Stress from work, money, life, it doesn't just switch off at night. And when it shows up at the worst possible time, Rouge Yet Ready is designed to help you take back control. Rouge Yet Ready is a next-generation prescription treatment created to support both the brain and the body, so you can feel present, confident, and ready when the moment matters. Rouge Yet Ready combines 3 clinically proven ingredients in one mint that dissolves under your tongue so it absorbs fast. Most men, they're ready in about 15 minutes on average, so you can stay present, confident, and in control when the moment is right. If you've been thinking about taking the next step, now is the time. Head to rougiet.com/lockedoncollege. That's RUGIET.com/lockedoncollege to get 15% off your order for a limited time. Rouge Yet Ready. Feel present, feel confident, feel ready. While LSU's hosting Sam Leavitt, the Tigers did pick up 4 more commitments on Tuesday, including their first 2 defensive adds via the transfer portal. Now, we've talked about a couple of these guys already, and one of them is the guy that they were all in on at safety, and that's Ty Benefield. So Ty Benefield, 6'2", 210 from Boise State. He was first team all-conference this year. He's been a 3-year major contributor, started each of the last 2 years, played in 41 games, and all you have to do is pop on the film of Ty Benefield, and you get it. By the way, his head coach, Danielson at Boise State, had this to say about Ty Benefield.
Ty Benefield is one of the best football players we've had here in my 9 years at Boise State. Any side of the ball, period, end of story. One, because he has an NFL skill set. Long, can run, fit like, yes. But he is an elite practice player. And that's what all the scouts, when we talk about him, and I'm like, just watch him practice. Watch him practice. We go to a walkthrough, Ty Benefield makes every tackle in a walkthrough, right? No plays off, how he trains, how he practices. He lives in that film room because he loves his team and he wants to be the best safety in the country. And I think he's putting on film that he's definitely one of those guys.
I had a conversation with a staff member the day that Ty Benefield showed up on campus, and he was like, I don't know anything about this kid, but he looks the part. He can play anywhere. So you're talking about a guy that was either the first or second best safety in this portal class, and you added him to a group that already includes Tamarcus Cooley and Deshaun Spears. LSU safety room, they were all in. They put all their eggs, from the safety standpoint, they put all their eggs in the Ty Benefield basket, and they hit. The other defensive prospect they got is Stephylon Green from Clemson. Now, this is a guy who played against LSU. He just finished his third. He's from Rome, Georgia. LSU recruited him out of high school, but he picked Clemson. He's 6'4", 290. And again, redshirt sophomore, so he's got 2 years of eligibility remaining. Actually had 6 tackles in the game against LSU at Clemson to open this past season. This was Dabo Sweeney in the middle of fall camp this year before the Clemson-LSU matchup about Stephylon Green.
I would say Stephylon is a 1. He's had a good camp. Stephylon is a problem. He's a good football player. Him and Capehart and Peter, if those guys are available every game, they'll have a good season. It's important to them. They're well coached. They're tough. They'll do what they need to do to be productive.
So think about that defensive tackle spot, right? You lose Jacobian Guillory. You lose Bernard Gooden. You've had some of the younger guys transfer out as well, but you're returning. You lose Ahmad Bro, but you're returning Dom McKinley and then some young guys. Buddy Mathis is back for another year. Brandon Brown, but you got to add some more veteran depth there. And Stephylon Green fits that mold, right? This is a guy that's played 3 years at Clemson, was recruited by LSU as a high schooler, and now is part of the LSU program with 2 years of eligibility remaining. Another thing that we kind of keep mentioning when you look at the portal class and the ads for LSU, a lot of these guys are guys with multiple years of eligibility remaining. It seems like this is very clearly a direction that Lane Kiffin and Billy Glasscock are taking. Yes, they're going to go for the immediate plug-and-play starters with a lot of experience, but instead of going for the 18-year-old high school freshman that they're going to grow and develop, they're going to go after a guy in the portal that can provide depth, maybe with 2 years of eligibility, that can contribute this year, who's already got college experience, and maybe be a starter or a star in 2027. So you get 2 years of eligibility out of these players. The other 2 prospects worth mentioning, one, Rod Gainey, is a running back out of Charlotte. Again, another guy who's got multiple years of eligibility remaining, and you ask yourself the question, do you trust that Lane Kiffin, Billy Glasscock, and Kevin Smith know what they're looking for in a skill set for offensive skill players? I mean, I'll remind you that Kejuan Lacey at Ole Miss this year, who was first-team all-conference, 1,400 rush yards, 20 touchdowns, he was a likely regarded guy that went to Missouri, barely played, and transferred to Ole Miss. They knew the skill set. You know you've got Harlem Berry, but they're trying to build depth behind him. And then finally, they added the number 3 receiver in the entire transfer portal with Jace Brown. So Jace Brown has committed, the Kansas State receiver, 3 years at K-State. He's averaged better than 17 yards a reception over 3 years. Highly productive, 6 foot, 190 pounder. So you're talking about a guy with great speed, big playability, and good size. You can tell, again, they know what they're looking for in offensive skill set guy. So for everyone who was concerned about that wide receiver room being depleted, I understand it, but they know what they're going to add and what skill set they're looking for at receiver. And they're rebuilding that room with guys that are immediate plug and play guys. And remember, I told you Jackson Harris, the Hawaii wideout, who's 6'3", was sitting next to Sam Leavitt at the basketball game at the PMAC on Tuesday night. Maybe we'll see that combination in Tiger Stadium on Labor Day weekend, or maybe it'll be Damon Williams. But I have a feeling we're going to get those answers in relatively short order. Hey, look, the portal news is not going away, so make sure you're locked in. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. Be sure to let a friend know that if they love the Tigers, tell you every day, we got you here every single day for Locked On LSU. And thank you once again for making Locked On LSU and Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in the world. Until next time, it is Locked On LSU, your team every day.